I think it's impossible to justify all the suffering in the world, let alone the suffering that we have been through. But I think that at least individually, on that level, we can look at all of our trauma and find golden nuggets. To put it as bluntly as possible, like little golden nuggets of truth. And I know that for me, that's at least true. And I've heard from many others that have suffered profoundly very similar outcomes. So good morning, brothers and sisters. Today I'd like to talk to you about suffering and pain and being abused. And I don't think that abuse is a necessary part of life, but it is a part of life, unfortunately. And as an abuse victim, I have been looking at all the different types of abuse that I've endured, from early childhood up until just recently, with how I'm used to speaking to myself, right? Being hard on myself, because that's the thing is, abuse isn't just a physical action. It's also a verbal and emotional relationship that we have to each other and to ourselves. For me, my abuse has given me the strength and the resilience to come back 10 times stronger than I was before my experiences. And before I get any deeper into my own story, I'd like to clarify that just because this is my experience and my relationship to my pain doesn't mean that this is a possible relationship and a possible outcome for everyone. Just like our bodies, our nervous system, our stories are so inherently different and unique to us, it would be impossible to apply everything that I've learned onto everyone else. That's arrogance. That's narcissism, to think that my truth is the truth. But I do think that there are fundamental truths that personally I found it very hard to accept. And recently on YouTube or something like that, I posted something about transformation, right? And I got a lot of, for the first time in a while, I got a lot of people negatively reacting to that video. Whether it's like, oh, well, does this justify the suffering of children starving in Africa? Or does this justify the fact that the past 3 years I haven't been able to walk and every day is pain, and without medication I can't function, you know? And that's the thing about these videos that I'm making, is that not only am I only sharing my story and not saying that like all of my lessons fundamentally apply to you, but I'm almost inviting not just people that resonate with my story or whatever I'm talking about, but I'm also inviting the discourse. I'm inviting the people that are deeply triggered by whatever I'm posting or whatever I'm sharing, because a lot of these things are very difficult concepts to accept. And this one, I think, is one of the most difficult. Maybe it's because of my own experience, but a lot of people I know personally that I'm close to are also victims of abuse, whether it's like with spouses or family. And all of us have that relationship to ourselves. I know that personally, I'm always really hard on myself. And then looking at why I have that relationship with myself, it dates all the way back to childhood, when I was raised by people that were very self-sufficient, self-reliant. And so, you know, when you're raised by hyper-independence, they're either never around, never emotionally available, or they're always physically pushing you to stand on your own 2 feet, and also as a man, as opposed to a woman in the traditional sense. Boys don't cry. So there's certain emotions that I've been raised and it's been ingrained in me to not express, even if it is in my heart, to not express it, right? You know, it's no wonder why I became a poet and a songwriter, because I had to get it out somehow. And it's funny now, like in my 30s, almost every aspect of my life, I'm expressing my joy and my pain and my vulnerability, now more than ever, knowing that community is healing, knowing that from hearing from other people is also a healing. Abuse shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't be a thing. But when we feel so lost, so scared, and feel so much pain, how could we not share that with other people by inflicting it on them? Especially if we were raised our whole lives to not share that and express that in a healthy way. I'm lucky that I found the arts, because my family, our trauma, especially with the men, but this is true of the women too, my family trauma is anger. My family trauma is rage. And all of our emotions are funneled through that one little singular point, which is why it's so intense and so explosive. So I thankfully found a creative outlet to get those energies out, in fitness as well, in meditation. Like, there's so many different things that I've taken up to help me analyze, express, and get out not just my anger and my rage, but also my sorrow, my deep black sadness that my whole life I've been afraid to feel, because it feels like going into a cave and not knowing your way around, especially as it gets darker and wetter and you get deeper. And will you ever see the light again? What if I die down here? That's what my sadness felt like. And so when feeling my sadness, and this is the way that the best way that I could describe it, my family trauma, but feeling my sadness, it's so much easier to put on the mask of anger on that sadness, because now there's a little bit of color and there's a little bit of character to it that doesn't feel so powerless. Wow, powerless. There's a disarming nature to masking our pain with anger, with rage, and then even more so with food, with distractions like video games and TV shows. You know, I might not have video game consoles, I might not have subscription services, but I still go on YouTube and watch, you know, lectures, or watch nature documentaries. And in a way, these are still distractions. It doesn't matter if something is spiritual or something is more educational, so it's like less junk food-esque. Everything that's not directly you being with yourself technically is a distraction from yourself. And I was talking to my therapist about this because, like, typically when he has clients that, try getting rid of vices and try getting rid of these crutches that we like to lean on as distractions, we tend to just sub them out with something else, because most addicts, because like I was definitely addicted to food, so I would classify myself as an addict for sure, and it's something that I had to work on over the past year and a half. Now my relationship has changed, but it's with addicts, like, there's never not an addiction to something. Like, one of my favorite addicts ever is Krishna Das. He found mantra and kirtans and decided to, instead of do heroin, instead of be addicted to drugs, be addicted to kirtans, be addicted to mantras, to chanting. And he dedicated his whole life to it. And that's how my relationship to music is. Like, I'm addicted to music. I'm addicted to listening to it, to singing, to performing, to writing for myself, for others, playing with other people, playing by myself. Music is my addiction. Instead of using food as a crutch, so we're always, as addicts, we're always shifting from one addiction to another. And what my therapist told me is that if you're going to be addicted to something, you might as well be addicted to something that is healthy, or something that, is not going to have this extreme negative blowback. And the funny thing too is that having healthy addictions, no matter what they are, they could become negative. Like being addicted to music, like I just said, like if that's all I did, period, and I was just so addicted to music that night and day for 12 hours a day, it's all I could do, as much fun as it would be, it would completely rip me away from myself more deeply. It would completely rip me away from any of the other joys I have in life. Like, I like being in nature, I like hiking, I like snowboarding, I like, spending time with my cat, spending time with friends, I like meditating, doing yoga, all these different things. None of these things would be able to exist in a world where I'm unhealthily addicted to music. And the reason why I consider it a healthy addiction is because I don't have to do it every single day. I do it when I want to. And I also am blessed with the kind of life that I'm able to do it. And I also make money with it, which is incredible. My whole life, I always wanted to, be a professional musician full time and make money with it. And I never knew it would look like this because, when we're young, we have stars in our eyes. We think that it looks like being on like a big amphitheater stage and we're playing to thousands of people and we're on TV. Like I grew up in the 90s with MTV, and so like TRL, so like things like that. Like that's what I thought it was. That's what it would look like. Little did I know that you could make a living with music, just like, I guess, putting yourself into it slowly but surely, like working your way up, and also being open to different opportunities. Like my whole life I've been like really rigid with it, and I think it's because when I was growing up with an abusive dad, he was very rigid with me. And so that rigidity was inherited. Like, not that he was like abusing me to get me to be more rigid like him, but I think that our relationship to our abusers is a very complex one. Like, I know that there's things about me that are echoes of my father's unhealthy habits and how he views himself, and it had really nothing to do with me. It was just because he was my abuser. It's almost like I don't even know why this happens. Obviously, like I feel like a psychologist would definitely understand this way better than I would, but we almost take on, and this is why I think abuse continues throughout the halls of time. But the abused typically take on the characteristics of their abuser. A lot of people that were bullied in school become bullies later on in life. Whether it's in like corporate America, or whether it's like some kind of like job, or if they have some kind of like status that they could throw around. That's because the abuse that they went through in like grade school, middle school, high school, whatever, that's what they learned. They learned, oh, I must be like this person that's holding me down, because if I'm holding other people down, I'll never be held down again. And that's some weird mental gymnastics to like we almost subconsciously in a way do justify the abuse by subconsciously becoming abusers ourselves in order to avoid being abused again. And understanding that, that's kind of hard for me to like treat as if, oh, like how could you do that? You know, like how could you be so asleep and so unaware that you're becoming the very thing that you hated growing up? It's all about survival. It's all about being accepted. It's all about not like wanting to be hurt again, because we're pain avoiding creatures. So we're going to do everything we possibly can to avoid pain. And I think that subconsciously there's something in us when we're being abused and we're spending years being abused, that as we get older, we subconsciously start to take on those characteristics of our abuser. And the funny thing too is it doesn't have to be like now we're bullies to other people, you know, preemptively striking to avoid someone abusing us again, right? Most of us become that abuser to ourselves. And that's where it's true for me. This is where it hits incredibly close to home for me. I would carry out every negative insult, every demeaning thing that's ever been said to me by not just like my dad, but like abusive spouses, people that like I was really close friends with, that, you know, like all the like the negative voices in our heads are not really our own voices. They're just the echoes of our abusers. And so if you're calling yourself, like, if you have weight trouble and you have like a relationship to food that's very difficult, like I did, the voice in your head that's while you're like eating something calling you like a fat piece of shit or something like that, that is not your voice. That's just the echo of the people that said that horrible shit to you. And I know now that whenever I'm being cruel to myself, whether it's about food, whether it's about you know, getting stuff done, or whether it's about oh, whatever it is. It could be literally at one point in my life, it was about every single aspect. How I look, how I present myself, how I talk, everything. We're so hard on ourselves, and it's not even us. It's not even really us that's being hard on ourselves. We are just allowing the abuse to continue, even if the abuser who planted those seeds is not even in our lives anymore. That's why I consider it an echo. Because like when you're shouting into like a canyon or a cave, the echo of your voice, it's already left your throat. You're not like projecting that sound anymore, but the sound is still being carried and bounced around. It's still there. And that's what our inner voices are. Because we somehow subconsciously learned that in a weird, twisted way, that if we're mean and cruel to ourselves, that is somehow learning. And that's a big thing about like if your abuser is like a parental figure or something like that. These are our caretakers. So at a very, very early age, we're like, whatever is good or bad, it's being imprinted on us from our parents. So we view these as survival tactics. So if someone is telling you to like man up, right? Like don't cry, shut up, man up, whatever, toughen up. We adopt that. Whether we believe in that or not, we adopt that subconsciously. And now that voice continues, and it might even continue with our voice inside of our heads, or even with theirs. Who knows? It's different for everyone. For the longest time, I thought it was my voice because, I have incredibly high standards for myself and blah, 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 blah. But realizing that the only reason why I have this kind of relationship to myself is because these are the kinds of relationships I had with my parents and with society at large. Like, how do I fit in? I need to conform. How do I get accepted? I need to learn how to speak better. I need to dress differently. I need to do this. I need to do that. And when I fail at something, I'm incredibly hard on myself. And we all are. Obviously, like, you go back thousands of years ago when we were nomadic tribes, if we couldn't conform and we couldn't be accepted, it literally meant death. That's why it feels so important to us now, even though we live in a society that's incredibly individualized. Like we still have community circles here and there, and we have the ability to create community ourselves. But like our society is so incredibly individualized that it almost doesn't matter. Like your survival isn't based on whether or not you're accepted. There are still guidelines for society that you need to follow in order to be accepted into it. Like you can't go out into the world naked. You can't just take whatever you want for free. You can't assault people whenever you feel like it. So there's still things that are unacceptable in this society that if you can't conform to those things, then you can't be a part of society, and that's why we have prison systems, and that's why we have like mental asylums and stuff like that. And a lot of these things definitely need reforming because the technology is out of date. The methodology is lacking a sense of understanding and compassion that most of us won't change without those elements, because the most compassionate people typically in our lives will be a parental figure, or a spouse. So of course, when we find ourselves in an abusive relationship to our family or an abusive relationship to our romantic partners or whatnot, of course that's going to resonate deeper than the greatest type of friendship or the greatest experience that we've ever had with ourselves, because it all goes back to like, where do you get your I was gonna say kicks, but like where do you get your kicks the most, right? Like, I know that for me, I've gotten most of my growth out of romantic partnership. So of course, if I'm in a romantic partnership that's abusive, I'm paying more attention to that, and I'm identifying more with that than a really helpful friend that's there. And that's, you know, going back to the beginning again, and that's because romantic partnerships typically are mirrors of our parents' relationships. That's why, like, if we're in a relationship where we're yelling a lot, and we think back to how we grew up and our parents were always yelling at each other, there's a clear parallel there. And, you know, I grew up Italian, so obviously a lot of my early relationships were just mirrors of that, you know? And, you know, you could say on a deeper psychological level, maybe the reason why my earlier relationships, because the later relationships were operating on a different level, because I was finally actually like dealing with a lot of the internal stuff. So I was able to actually like clearly look at a relationship and understand, oh, this needs to come to an end because we're going in two different directions, or this is a relationship that works better as a friendship or whatever it is. But back in the day, I didn't know how to give up. I didn't know how to let go. And I would do everything I possibly can to rectify the situation, seeing myself as the problem. Maybe if I could fix myself, or maybe I could just do more. I could do more to fix it. Again, another childhood wound where my parents got a divorce. I couldn't do anything about it. I was just a kid. But I guess subconsciously, I felt like maybe I should have done something, or that I could have done something. Even though, as I'm saying that, I can't imagine thinking something like that, because when you're like a single digit child, there's not much you can do, or not much control you have over anything. So how could you take on that level of responsibility? You know, I was the oldest child, so maybe I had this like weird sense of duty. So maybe subconsciously I felt like it was my responsibility to, you know, prevent this from happening, even though I didn't even really understand it. Looking back now, it's very obvious. These were two people that were fundamentally different and were together for a time, but clearly weren't meant to be together forever. And it was what it was. You know, like, I spent my 20s looking back on my parents' relationship thinking that's a relationship that, you know, not going to say that it shouldn't have happened, but in my 20s, I would think about it like, you know, it was kind of a mistake to continue the relationship. It was kind of a mistake to have kids in a loveless dynamic, you know, where one person had this very idealized way of being in a relationship and almost wanted to control the other person, whereas the other person was hyper individualistic and just wanted to live her life the way that she wanted to live her life. She wanted to be a mother. She wanted to have kids. She wanted to have a partner who was there, but she was also polyamorous, so she didn't want to just have one partner. And, you know, that's a difficult situation to be in if you're not on the same page with that. You know, with my last partner, I was polyamorous, initially out of curiosity, and it became just a discussion at first, and then we decided to try it. And all of, you know, like, the whole experience was always like, we were always mutual, always checking in with each other and making sure that we were on the same page with this. Because that's what a relationship is. A healthy relationship is two or more people communicating. And so many of us are afraid to communicate. And that ties, once again, to our trauma. What if we were punished growing up for speaking our truth? What if we were punished for speaking up at all? And so over time, we learned that every time we speak our minds, we get punished. So we learn to silence ourselves. I've dated people that have an incredible light within them that they've had to dim. And only in safe spaces have they learned how to let that light in them out. And in a lot of ways, I'm also one of those people. And I'm only now learning that I don't have to be in a romantic partnership to be this vulnerable or be this open or to shine my light in a way. I can do that with anyone and everyone, and whoever is willing to receive that light or maybe even shine it back. Those are the people that you're then meant to be in relationship with, regardless of what kind of relationship it is. It could be a friendship, it could be a romantic partnership, whatever. And clearly, it'll also turn a lot of people off. Like one, I mentioned earlier, a post on YouTube. I think this was a different one. I posted about, what was it about? I think it was about like a really good romantic partner reminds you that all the things that you're seeking in someone else are actually inside of you. And that whatever they helped you achieve or helped you do was really inside of you all along. And that truth resonated with me so deeply that I just wanted to share that with people. And it deeply triggered someone that was compelled to call that narcissism, because anything to do, like, true love has nothing to do with the self, right? And unfortunately, I think that because we want to be viewed as good people and we want to be viewed as selfless people, that we view self-love as selfish, as a bad thing or evil, right? When the truth is, if we don't really love ourselves and we're constantly looking for love outside of us in order to feel love, that's more manipulative and selfish and narcissistic than loving yourself. Because the people that show you the best love possible typically are people that have that love for themselves. And also, to go back to that post again, a lot of times the people that are showing us very beautiful things about ourselves, those are things about ourselves. It's not because this person glazed you up and now all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, you know, like if it wasn't for you. And yeah, sure, someone can be the catalyst for the awakening of our own self-worth or the awakening of our own self-appreciation. But what we're appreciating in ourselves is in us. It's not because this person pointed to you and said, "You're an awesome person." Well, you pedestalizing that person now, you're giving your power away. And I think that the person that was triggered by what I said was someone who has convinced themselves that realizing that the love that he may have or be seeking exists within himself is somehow a bad thing. I could only imagine what kind of trauma that is. Like, what causes that, right? I think that it's really hard to accept ourselves when we're not accepted by other people growing up, family, friends, relationships, whatever it is. So, yeah, and this is in another video that I put out too. I realized that we're all just projecting. We're not just mirrors for each other, and so like a lot of what we see in other people is things about us that we don't like, or things about us that we appreciate, like, oh, this person is so great. Well, that's because there's things that we identify with that we think is great. So that's in us. But we aren't, we're not taught to appreciate ourselves, or the trauma that we experience from our abusers makes us feel like we can't accept ourselves. So it's easier to put it in another person. I love this person. That's true love. But it's not. True love is putting it in another person, and then the other person turning around and being like, oh, that's really just you though. That's true love. And also like self-acceptance, because that enough of that will bring you to a place of self-acceptance and realizing that everything that you seek, everything that you love, everything that you appreciate is in you. And to take it in a more radical direction, all the things that you don't like in people also exists in you. And that's even harder to accept than, what triggered this person specifically about true love, is that true radical acceptance of all the things that I notice. It doesn't have to be just like things I love or things I hate. Things that I notice that resonate with me either on a positive or negative level, whatever it's in, whether it's like society, people, individuals, whatever it is, it exists in me. And the things that I don't like are things that I'm not willing to accept about myself. And the cool thing is, if we could get to a place where we can accept those things about ourselves, we stop judging them in other people and we just accept it. Now, we don't have to like it, but we accept it. Accept it as something that exists. Accept it as something that, and it's the idea of like trying to pour love into it, right? And like not love it like oh, I love that parents are abusive to their kids. How could you love something like that? How could you accept something like that, right? Because now it's getting to like a really uncomfortable place where I'm someone who is abused, and I don't want to carry out that trauma. I want to break the cycle. Well, the only way to break the cycle is to be conscious of it within me. Even though I was abused, and I wasn't my abuser planted seeds in me to then continue the abuse as a future abuser. If not as an abusive parent or an abusive spouse, then at the very least, as an abusive person to myself. And I think we all have the ability to break that cycle. So, thanks for coming on this wild ride with me, talking about abuse, radical acceptance, the things that we like and don't like in other people are really aspects of us. And I can just keep going on these things, but I try to keep these as short and focused as possible. But if you have your own opinion, obviously this is a very difficult and opinionated topic. So if you have your own opinions, I'm entirely open to them. Good, bad, whatever it is. I'd like to hear what your relationship to your abuse, to yourself. I'd like to hear what that's like. Thank you for listening.